Hello, this is Chelsea Rogers with Carson Newman University. I'm interviewing Jennifer Malone with Loudoun County Schools. Miss Malone, what is your position and how long have you been at your position?
Hello, I am currently the technology and middle school supervisor for Loudoun County School, and I've held this position now. This is the start of the 8th year. I've been in it 7 years.
Okay, and what is your job description? Do you go visit schools? Do you help them out?
I do go visit schools and wear different hats depending which role I'm playing. I serve all 9 schools for technology and 2 other sites as well, central office and our tech center. And then as middle school supervisor, I have 4 middle schools that I go to and supervise.
All right, awesome. Who evaluates you at your position?
Dr. Vance, our director of schools.
Okay, how did you start in Loudoun County Schools and how long have you been a part of this school system?
Okay, this is my 29th year. I started as a classroom teacher and taught for about 13 years, then became an assistant principal, moved into a principalship that I held 8 years, and now I've been in central office 7.
Awesome. Now, what are your responsibilities at your position?
Well, there's a lot. As technology director, I'm responsible for purchasing and making decisions about the kinds of technology our district uses. I evaluate software. I literally supervise all the major purchases for the district. I oversee our one-to-one technology program. I file our annual E-rate so that we can receive federal funding for internal connections. As middle school supervisor, then I actually go into our schools, meet with teachers, work with them in PLCs, I evaluate teachers. So it runs the gamut depending which hat I'm wearing, sometimes both at the same time.
That's awesome. What is your leadership style or the style that you've used the longest that you've felt most comfortable with?
Okay. I've always strongly felt like the most important thing I could do is surround myself with the very best people. So put a lot of emphasis as a principal on hiring great teachers. We had a process where we would have 2 or 3 interviews. They would work with, go through our leadership team. And once you get really great teachers in place, with the assistance of the leadership team, we would come up with a vision of where we wanted to be instructionally. And then I would let them go for it and let them try things out. And if it didn't work, we went back and tried again. But I think if you've got the right people in the right places, your job as a leader becomes much simpler.
I agree. What are your opinions on instructional and transformational leadership?
Well, I think instructional has to come first because that's why we're being paid to do this job, is to help students gain the knowledge they need to be successful in their careers or college. So I think first and foremost, you have to have a great knowledge of instructional best practices. You have to have experience yourself with that to lead others in that way. And once those processes and pedagogy are in place, I think then you can move on, to the culture and working with motivating and communicating and things like that for transformational leadership.
Awesome. What is your leadership philosophy?
Well, I'll go back to you get the right people in the right places and provide them the tools and things that they need to do their job in the best way they can, provide them opportunities for input, for, again, to try new things. I think that has paid off for me, as a principal in the past.
Okay. What was your biggest takeaway or advice that you would give a principal since you once were one?
I would say to probably pick your top 3 big things that, because every principal that comes into a new job sees things in that school they might want to change. Pick the top 3 and probably just really work hard on those, because if you try to do too much at one time, it's perceived poorly, plus you probably won't be successful. The other thing though, and it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, when you are a new principal, I had a person tell me one time a new broom sweeps clean. And sometimes if you're going to make a drastic change, that first year is really good because people expect you to make a lot of changes that first year.
Okay. How do you handle stress and pressure, whether it's parents or other teachers or anything like that? How do you handle it yourself?
spiritual life, exercise, family, but I'm really a personality that I don't get stressed out extremely over most things. Luckily, once you've been doing this a long time, you've seen so many things and you realize there's always another side, and you just try to look at each situation and handle it as it comes.
Okay. Going off of that, what are some of the biggest challenges for a person in this position?
I think juggling so many things. Again, we're a small district, so every supervisor in our district wears several hats, and it's just juggling all of those positions and trying to gain the expertise you need to be really good at all of your positions.
Okay. What is the most rewarding aspect of your position, in your opinion?
Okay, most rewarding. Being a principal was great because you had a school family. It was your home. You could make, decisions, and you felt in control of that school situation. And I loved it. It's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. But being at the district level, I also love that I get a new perspective. I get to go into every single building in our district. I see globally that there are great things going on everywhere, and I'm able to pick up and find great practices to share, as well as realize maybe one teacher might struggle a little bit here, and I can pair them up with someone maybe in another building to help them be stronger in their areas of weakness.
That's awesome. How do you use emotional intelligence at your position?
I think the key thing there is you just really have to take the time. And sometimes it does really mean taking the time and making the effort to get to know the people that work with you and under you in whatever position you have. You have to build relationships and get to know them first as people. And then I think they trust you and will work better with you, in whatever initiatives you're trying to lead.
I agree. Do you attend or a part of any school PLCs, or what was the most interesting PLC you've attended?
I'm constantly going to PLCs at different schools. Depending, middle schools, it's for the most part instructional, but I do a lot of technology PLCs as well. And I think it's always fun for me when I can go in and kind of see how teachers are doing things in their classroom, and then find a way to help them maybe make a difficult procedure much easier through technology. And they leave and they're so happy because they now have a new tool to take back and use that will make their day-to-day easier.
Okay. In your role as a leader, what qualities should a person have to be an effective leader?
I go back again to relationships and knowledge, those two things. You first of all have to, I think you get respect by earning respect, and you have to have been in the trenches, done the job, have a good knowledge and a good proven track record. And then again, you have to form those relationships with the people that you work with so that they trust you, and you have to give them some freedom to help you make decisions.
Okay. And you've already stated that you observe many teachers. When you give them feedback from an observation, how do you determine which areas to place the most emphasis?
Okay. In Loudoun County, we use the team model, and all of our teachers and administrators are very familiar with that rubric. 9 times out of 10, the teacher and I always come to the same consensus on what those areas might be. I have very rarely come into a post-conference with a teacher and they not first say exactly what I had determined was probably the area that they could refine in some way.
Okay. What is your opinion on flipped learning and or the blended classroom in Loudoun County schools? I know you said some schools are one-to-one. How many are there, and are there other schools that are becoming close to being one-to-one?
Okay. We have, our director and assistant director and I have worked for about 4 or 5 years to slowly develop the capacity for one-to-one. We now are at the point in Loudoun County Schools this school year's 18-19 where we have devices in every building where we have enough devices to be one-to-one. Now, different schools are utilizing those resources in different ways. Out of our school system of 9 schools, 7 are what I would call the traditional one-to-one. Every student has a laptop. A couple schools are managing that a little differently. You mentioned flipped and blended learning. Flipped learning, I think, has a place in moderation. I'm not a huge fan of a teacher that might record every single lesson and the kids have to watch that at home and then maybe they're just doing only projects at school. I think you have to have some direct instruction from the teacher. So I think, in moderation, flipped learning can be good. Blended learning is simply just taking all of those best practices we've been doing in the classrooms, instructional strategies that we know that work, and adding in a technology piece to help students be engaged, help them maybe see things in a way they wouldn't be able to see them without technology.
Okay. And since we read and did the book Bold School as a district and seeing the author present to us, in order to be an effective school system and a teacher, a principal, a leader, what do you think should be our biggest takeaway or biggest area of focus for growth?
Okay. I think what I loved most about what Weston Kieschnick told our teachers was, if you are a great teacher, you're already there. There's nothing wrong with old school. Old school has worked well for us for many years. So I love that. And in adding in the technology piece, although for some teachers that might be scary, do it slowly and what makes you comfortable, but realizing there are so many worlds out there for our kids. If you will take that risk, maybe a scientific concept where a kid has a difficult time grasping it if they just read it in a book, whereas you can do a virtual learning lab and they're seeing it and touching it and feeling it. And I just think, again, I love that idea of blended learning being bold school, because you're already a great teacher. Let's just add in one more thing.
Okay, thank you so much, Jennifer Malone, for coming to talk to us. This concludes our interview.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Rogers. I just got done interviewing Jennifer Malone with Loudoun County Schools, who is the middle school supervisor and the technology supervisor for the county. My first conclusion after this video interview is the amount of dedication it takes to be a middle school supervisor and the technology supervisor for the county. Luckily, Loudoun County is a small county, but she still meets and visits not only the full middle schools as the middle school supervisor, but meets with all the schools and all the teachers if they have any technology needs and or concerns. And she also trains teachers on technology integration in the classroom. The amount of juggling she has to do with these two positions, I'm sure, is tremendous, but her background of being a teacher leader, then an assistant principal, then the principal, has prepared her for the many hats that she wears now in the leadership position for Loudoun County Schools. 29 years of experience with the same county is huge. My second biggest takeaway from the interview with Jennifer Malone was how she kept referring back to recommended being surrounded by good people and good staff and going out of the way to build those relationships and get to know the people. She has built so many relationships with administrators, co-workers, and teachers, and I can tell that is a huge quality of being an effective leader. She calls schools and this county a family. People want to work hard for her, they respect her, but they also know that they can go to her for feedback and advice. I actually went to a technology conference with her in Nashville called TETC back in 2015, and I just watched her network and connect with so many new people there. Relationships are her biggest success in being a leader. The last conclusion from this interview is that you have to have a driven personality. You can't just be their friend and have that relationship, but also be their mentor. You have to provide effective feedback to teachers and principals. You have to delegate tasks and to lead people. You have to oversee multiple projects, and especially with being the middle school supervisor and the technology supervisor for the county. I've concluded that this job takes a driven personality to be able to effectively lead others. Thank you.